Stan, we're live.
Hey, hold just a moment. I've got a technical snag here.
To the blind, my baby loving for the sun to shine. She's my sweet little blind. She's my pride and joy. She's my sweet little baby. I'm my little lover boy.
And welcome to In the Dugout. Mike Stenhouse with you today. Got an interesting show, and once again we're going to discuss things that you just don't hear about in the local media, the corporate media. You know, the big television stations, the state's newspaper, the big corporate owned talk shows. Certain topics they refused to cover, so we're going to not only cover them but analyze them a little bit for you today. Today in the Dugout, I'm wearing my Pawtucket Red Sox hat, still missing the fact that we haven't had baseball there for a long time and probably will never again. So I wore the uniform. I was proud to wear the uniform of the Pawtucket Red Sox. I was broadcaster for them for 12 years, from 1988 to 1999. So some great players come through there. Nomar Garcia-Parra, Jason Varitek. I mean, just all of them. So all people I interviewed, got to know, and we'll certainly miss the Pawtucket Red Sox. All right, so today on the show, again, what the corporate media won't tell you. We have, we're going to update you on some of the lawsuits that are out there from the governor's team and allies of the governor. Again, the news media wants you to think that it's a done deal that Joe Biden is president. It's not. By the way, newsflash, he is not the president-elect officially, constitutionally. Certainly is the presumed president-elect. Certainly by next week, he might become president-elect when the Electoral College meets, but that's still not the end of it. You know, it still has to go through Congress. So, and we're going to keep you informed every step of the way. So Joe Biden is not the president-elect yet, and he is certainly not destined to be president yet. Likely, absolutely. But just to be clear, and just so you know, technically what's true and what's not, what's constitutional and what's not. Also an update, we still are under tyrannical rule, single person rule by a governor who's just drunk on her power. And we're going to hear more about that probably Thursday. And then next week when this pause is over, we're going to be talking about that today. And we're still, and not only while we have a tyrannical power drunk governor, we also have a cowardly hide under the desk General Assembly who refuses to pass a budget, who refuses to preserve our economic, religious, and other freedoms that this governor is trampling all over. They have the power to do that, but this cowardly General Assembly refuses to do so. So that's the news flash. So we're going to talk about some of those quickly. You're not going to spend a lot of time on the illegal and election updates, but again, you need to be updated. You need to know what is actual news, not just what they want you to hear. We're going to spend quite a bit of time on COVID today. We don't always talk about that. Usually we save that for our Thursday discussion with Dr. Boston, and I think tomorrow, by the end of the show, I may have a surprise for you on that. 3 issues to do with COVID today. Did you know that we had a similar hospital overcrowding problem due to the flu 2 years ago? We'll talk about that and what we did and didn't do then, but what we are doing now. Why? Let's talk about it. The ACI, you've read reports maybe up to 90, 95, maybe it's even now 100% of the inmates have contracted the disease. The ACI appears to be a controlled group where herd immunity may now exist. Yet people are calling for protections. Well, they're already protected. They've already had the disease. Nobody's sick. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk again. We're going to expand even more, and this will lead into tomorrow, why the government is hiding critical COVID-19 testing data from you, the people. Why that data can be critical to public policy decisions we make with regarding lockdowns, with regard to your personal quarantine regimens, when you can go to work, when you can interact with others, when you should get tested, when, I mean, it's really important data, and they're purposely hiding it from you. Florida became the first state to unlock this over the weekend. We're going to talk about that. And then Larry, the Liberty Guy, do we have our surprise gift for the end of the show? Yay or nay?
Yay, coming up.
So I can announce AA?
Yeah, absolutely.
At 4:55 or so?
4:55.
Okay, so we're going to have Ann Armstrong today. Going to go find that link now. But she issued a lawsuit or filed a case in court, basically, I guess, on religious freedom, but we'll find out. She's the pro-pot, pro-religious, I think even pro-life, kind of out there, former gubernatorial candidate. But she filed an important filing today to preserve religious rights, and that's important for all of us, regardless of our religion. So we'll talk about her with her at the very end of the show. Basically, if I had a theme for this show, and it would be a message to both the media and to the government. Tell us the truth and leave us alone. You're afraid of something? Be afraid. If you want to lock yourself down, lock yourself down. We live in a free society. Let us make decisions for ourselves. Yes, always yes. Protect the vulnerable, the aged, those in congregate care homes. But for everybody else outside of those homes who are healthy and not suffering from a severe comorbidity, leave us the hell alone. But this governor, this nanny state, this media wants to keep feeding us lies, want to keep increasing the fear, so they can control more and more aspects of our life. And that will be a theme we'll hear about regularly. All right, let's go first to the national news with the election politics. So again, Joe Biden is not yet, and I'm not saying this to be petulant, it's just constitutionally, factually true. Joe Biden is not yet president-elect. That may happen next Monday when the Electoral College meets. But even then, he's not necessarily on an unalterable path to become president. You're seeing the pressure. So again, understand how this works. That is, unless Donald Trump concedes. Donald Trump concedes, then you can call everything official. You can call the results official. You can give Biden his title and all that. So that's why there's this great pressure on to force Donald Trump to concede and to so that we can deny his rights. He has every right in the world to challenge whatever he wants. He may look like a fool for doing so. He may come out as a hero. We don't know. But an official winner cannot be declared for the 2020 election until either the candidate concedes or all recounts, lawsuits, and other audits are resolved. That's period. So it's important you understand the real news. And it's not the job of the news media to call elections or to confer upon somebody a status or title that is not constitutionally sound. All right, I see Larry the Liberty Guy is here. Does that mean, Larry, we've important guest?
Not yet, Stan. Hold on. I'm checking them out.
All right, there might be some confusion. We were supposed to have an event tomorrow. Maybe they signed in for that, but it's tomorrow. Okay, so real news is more important there. You need to know what's really happening and what's not. And that's why we're doing the job of the news media, providing you with information on these big stories. I mean, it's the biggest story of the last year, and yet now the media wants to stick their head in the sand. I mean, so as long as Trump doesn't give in until next Monday and resign, Joe Biden is not the president-elect. Now, on these law cases, by the way, this is a little funny. That I like funny cartoons. You guys too. You know, again, some reason my screen is freezing again, so I'll share that funny with you a little bit later. But a lot of the lawsuits that are out there were not dismissed on the merits. They were dismissed for procedural reasons. You were too early, you were too late, you didn't follow this process, you didn't follow that process. So it's unclear whether the president's team has indeed put together a strong case or not. Because really there have been I don't know that there's been any actual rulings, as they say, on the merits. All right, here's that funny. I'll share with you right here. They're both swearing in on January 20th, and Supreme Court Justice Roberts, who we know is not a fan of Trump. Give it up, Donald. So anyway, I thought that was a good one. So we'll see what happens. There are some interesting lawsuits that happen. I think the most important one was what was filed today in Texas, and this is a really interesting lawsuit. The state of Texas, it's important for two reasons. The state of Texas filed a lawsuit today against the swing states, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, where they say they broke their own state's laws and constitution on how to conduct election within those states. Now, this is important for two reasons. First, they are claiming, well, let me read a quote from their lawsuit. The state of Texas is suing the other states. The state of Texas is the plaintiff. The other states, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, are the defendants. Quote, by these unlawful acts, the defendant states have not only tainted the integrity of their own citizens' vote, but their actions have also debased the votes of citizens in the plaintiff state, which is Texas, and other states that remained loyal to the Constitution. So they're saying these four states were not loyal to their laws and Constitution. We were, therefore, you've basically disenfranchised us in other states. Texas approached now, the second reason this is important is that Texas approached the Supreme Court directly, because Article 3 of the Constitution says that it is the court, that only the federal courts, the Supreme Court, is where jurisdiction of state versus state issues can be adjudicated. So that means that disputes between two or more states immediately must go to the highest court in the land. You don't have to go through that whole process of lower court hearings. So think about that. Think about you as a Rhode Islander. I mean, we could just as easily have sued. Of course, this group of leaders in our state won't sue, but if we followed constitutional law, which actually we didn't in our state, and we've talked about that plenty of time, but assuming for a minute we did, and those other four states, those defendant states, did not, and in essence, by violating constitutional provisions, those other states disenfranchised voters in Rhode Island. Texas is claiming that they disenfranchised their voters. So hold on, I want to get to, we have someone online, and I think we've got to mix up on dates. So I'm going to bring on Patricia Morgan here for a second, because I don't want her hanging. Patricia, are you there? All right, well, Patricia, our event we talked is tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but you can hang on and listen, but our event, and I'm going to tell our viewers about that a little later on. Patricia, by the way, will be one of our panelists tomorrow in a special event. Sorry for the screw up, Patricia. Say hi to everybody.
Yeah, hi,
Okay.
everybody.
Okay, I'm very sorry. Can you
It's
do
all right, no
tomorrow?
problem.
We'll see you
Yeah.
then. Okay, thank you.
Tomorrow's good.
Okay, so I think that's a very interesting lawsuit. It's a state claiming it is disenfranchised. It doesn't even have to. The beauty of this lawsuit is two things. One way, it goes right to the Supreme Court, and two, they don't even have to prove voter fraud. They don't have to worry about mail ballot. All they're trying to say is, hey, these other states didn't follow the federal or their own constitution or their own laws. We did. That's unequal treatment. We're suing. Okay, that's one. In Arizona, lawmakers there in the Republican Party are calling for the decertification of the election results that were just certified last week, claiming they've now seen so much evidence of fraud that they're putting out. I don't know what the process is there, but they're putting out a public call for whatever that process is to happen to decertify the votes. And then in Georgia today, again, the Republican majority lawmakers there have put out a statement. Basically, while they don't have same powers in other, they are calling for a review. They're claiming that millions of Georgians may have been disenfranchised in their votes, and they're calling for a fix to this. They don't have the authority within of themselves, but they're putting out basically, I guess, would be the equivalent of a resolution, a call to action, calling for a special session so they can fix or address what they feel are voting inequities in their state. So things are heating up. As much as the national and local media doesn't want you to know about it, limited as they may be, there are still legal paths available for the Trump team. And it's news whether you like it or not. It's news whether the mainstream media likes it a lot. When there are potential options, as likely as one may be and as likely as another may be, but when there are potential options that could determine this or that, or he who will be the next president of the United States and leader of the free world, that's news, folks. And your local media, the corporate media, and refusing to share that with you is doing you a great disservice. And I do agree with the president on that those members of the fake news media are the enemy of the people. They are supposed to keep us informed. They are supposed to keep both sides in check, and they are not doing their job. When they don't do their job, democracy in a free society is threatened, and therefore they are the enemies of democracy. Okay, here's something. So let's switch back to Rhode Island and switch back to COVID. And this is a deja vu all over again. Well, it's actually not all over again. So if you were to see this headline, what do you think? Okay, yeah, we've been hearing all about that for weeks, right? Yeah, we've got an increase in COVID cases. Well, let's see. Look at this date right here. January 17th, 2018. Almost 3 years ago. We had a severe flu, 2017-18. A lot of people went to the hospital. Hospitals got overcrowded, as you show on the headline here. State officials were forced to coordinate with local EMS, emergency service chiefs, to take patients to other area hospitals as this flu outbreak worsened in Rhode Island. The first line of the story: emergency rooms at Rhode Island Hospital and Marion Hospital are overwhelmed with flu patients and experiencing long wait times. Did we shut down society then? Did we blast in the news every time somebody unfortunately might have died from that flu? Because certainly some people did. You see, this is, except for the issue in the congregate care senior living facilities, which we must be careful with and we must protect. This COVID-19 really is, to the rest of us, less dangerous than many flu outbreaks in the past. But yet, this government, other governments throughout other states, nationally, other countries, based on inaccurate projections in March and April, have panicked. They've infringed on your rights. And they have been acting in an unaccountable manner. It's just unbelievable that this governor is infringing on our rights, hiding stuff from us, as we'll get into in a minute, and that the General Assembly, who has the power to intervene, refuses to do so. Nick Mattiello, Dominic Ruggiero, now Joseph Shikarchi, the soon-to-be new speaker, sitting on their hands, sitting back and letting it all be, because they don't want to rock the boat. But yet, by not rocking the boat, they're allowing businesses to close, jobs to be lost, people to suffer, children to suffer from unintended lockdown mania. I don't know what you call it, mania, but whatever. And yet nobody cares. Nobody in government cares. They're just afraid. So look what happened. Look at this sobering stat that came out nationally. A big poll, Forbes quoted it. So 48% of small businesses could close for good, because we might have overreacted. No, we did overreact to a virus that ends up to the general population being not even as dangerous as recent flu outbreak. Forbes magazine reports that the number one worry on most small businesses owners' minds, the threat of more government mandates in business that would force more business closures. And it's that unpredictability that creates such a terrible business climate. We know we have a horrible business climate in Rhode Island. Some companies rank us as the worst business climate in the nation. But what makes our business climate worse is not just the climate itself, but it's a threat of future regulations. The threat, because everyone knows that we have this activist General Assembly. Everybody knows we have activist executive branch, and who the hell knows what they're going to do next? So even if I think I might be able to manage today's closures or today's rules, taxes, regulations, I don't know what the hell they're going to do in future years if I'm a business owner. And that's what they talk about, the threat. So what Forbes said, the threat of more government mandated business closures. That's Rhode Island. We're always under the threat of more government mandate. Not only government mandated business closures, but government mandates. Right? That's always a threat. Minimum wage, this bogus equal pay. Everybody believes in equal pay. We already have protections, but they're going to take it to an extreme. Energy policies that restrict choices for those businesses that either use energy, whether it's in their vehicles or whether it's in their facility. Going to raise the cost of energy, reduce choices and options for businesses. That threat of more government mandates is what makes Rhode Island, in my view, such a hostile place to raise a business, or to start a career, and to invest in a business. But yet, who knows? Every year, who knows what they're going to do next, right? You know that if you're a small business owner, you know that. Call in and tell me about it if you'd like. You know, here's our numbers. You can zoom in at that website. You can dial in at that phone number. You're a small business owner. Tell me how the threat of more mandates makes you feel, how it makes it difficult for you not to be able to plan for the future. Okay, moving on. Really, really interesting topic next. You've seen the stories of COVID spikes, massive outbreaks at the ACI in our prison system. According to the Providence Journal, I think, as of Friday afternoon, 328 of 354 prisoners. 328 of 354 prisoners. Think about that. That's probably close to 95%. In the maximum security unit, as well as 53 staff had tested positive over the past month. Another 165 prisoners and 52 staff in the medium security, which is a larger facility, are reported. But just 4 prisoners and 1 staff member were hospitalized. Doesn't say whether anyone was seriously hospitalized, whether they're in there for just treatments and released. We don't know. But still, there were calls to release prisoners against the threat. Black Lives Matter, of course, calling for the release of prisoners so they don't catch the virus. So again, I'm not trying to be cute here, but what's the problem? You catch the virus, you don't really even get sick, and now you're sort of immune to the virus and you're going to be healthy. So for 2 weeks, you might have to be a little bit isolated. We all know that these populations will not suffer adversely. So a spokesman for the Department of Corrections, J.R. Ventura, as well as Richard Ferrucci, president of the Correctional Officers Union, denied an assertion by the Black Lives Matter group that inmates have died after catching it. They've also pretty much said, we're not going to go along with your plea to release the prisoners to protect them from COVID. Protect them from what? The flu? It's just the flu. To them, it's just the flu. They even said there's a lot of space in the building, even though most people have caught it, to isolate those infected from others. So there's no reason to release them for 2 reasons. It's not really a danger, and there is space to isolate them. So, but what we have here, you have a controlled, this is very rare. We have a controlled environment. Those 354 prisoners are in a controlled environment. They're a control group. They ought to be studied. Just like, remember how those original 300 or 400 people on that cruise ship back in March that they had kept offshore and they were really studying and measuring and doing, they ought to do that here too. Because in the ACI right now, you have herd immunity. All right, what is herd immunity? We've talked about this before. Let's go over this again. Herd immunity is not a strategy of just letting everyone catch it and letting those who are weak die. That's not what herd immunity is. It's not even a strategy. Herd immunity is not a strategy. It's a biological condition. It's a fact that applies to almost every infectious disease that ends the life of that infectious disease. A vaccine is one way to get us closer to herd immunity where there's nobody left to be infected and to spread it among each other. People can either have natural antibodies. That's one component of building herd immunity. Certain number of people in the population have natural antibodies or immune systems that can fight it off so they'll never catch the disease or become infected. If people who have already become infected and survived, they're going to be immune for some period of time. We don't know if that's forever or 4 or 5 months. We don't know yet. And then people who get vaccinated against it. Most of them, 95% efficiency, it looks like, will become immune. And that's what hurt. So as you increase each of those, you start getting to a state where there's no place left for the virus to spread to. So herd immunity is not a stress, not just let's not do anything, let everyone catch it, and let those who aren't strong enough die. That's not what it is. Again, that's the media lying to you. That's the left lying to you. That's big government lying to you. Even a vaccine is just one part. The reason we have a vaccine is to get us to herd immunity, where enough people, again, are resistant or can't be infected. The vaccine will help, but it's herd immunity that will bring this virus to an end. Okay, herd immunity is a epidemiological, I can't even say it, fact. It's a condition that must be met to end this pandemic. It's not a strategy. Of course, we all know the strategy is we have to protect the vulnerable. So the strategy is allow, do vaccines, do whatever we can in the general population, but protect the elderly. We can't let the disease, we really can't, we really don't want herd immunity to spread among, to be a condition in the senior population, because that will result in a lot of death. We always have to protect the elderly and the infirm. We know who the people are vulnerable, we know who's not, and we need to continue based on that. All right, so combine that with the story of the 1918 overcrowding of hospitals. Combine that with what's happening at the ACI, and look at this headline. There's a paper called the New Boston Post. Rhode Island, the worst place in the country for coronavirus. Now, you may have seen the headlines that Rhode Island, now has more cases per 100,000 than any other state in the nation. But we all know, and as our center has been arguing, it's much more than just, there's a medical considerations, and there's economic considerations, and there are social considerations. Lockdowns have social implications and ramifications on us as human people who are designed to be interactive social people. Lockdowns have devastating economic impacts on businesses and on people with jobs. And of course, then there's the medical considerations. But in forming proper public policy, you have to look at all three. Now, take a look at this one. This was in the Providence Journal the other day. Rhode Island, in almost every case, is in the bottom third, or worse, in the bottom 10, or even the bottom 5 in almost every stat, including economic. Bottom third when it comes to unemployment rate. Bottom third, worst third when it comes to infection rate. Worst third when it comes to deaths per capita. Worst third when it comes to the growth of cases. So we are failing medically, and we are failing economically. This governor's policies have failed. She hasn't protected us. I mean, it would be one thing to say, well, look at all the lives we're saving, look at all the cases we're not having, and therefore it's worth, some might argue it's worth the economic pain. Or some might argue the other way, that, it's okay if a few more people get sick, as long as we can have growth and prosperity on the economic side. We don't have either in the state. We are failing medically, and we are failing economically. I don't think we know the social impacts yet. Those are going to have to be studies that come later. Suicide rates, abuse at home, all kind, people taking medicine for depression or drinking or whatever the case may be because of depression, of being anxiety from being locked up all their whole life. We don't know what those social stats will be, and we don't know how Rhode Island will turn out on those. But the two we do know, Rhode Island, I haven't seen recent numbers, but Rhode Island had one of the smallest GDP growths of any state in the nation as well. We lost more jobs proportionally than almost any state in the nation, and we're recovering them slower than almost any state in the nation. There is no trade-off. There's nothing to say, well, we'll do a little better medically and suffer a little more economic. We're suffering across the board. And what does this governor threaten? Or what has she been doing? What does she threaten to do? More of the same. This is how the left works. What did Ronald Reagan say? When the planners' plans fail, the planners plan more plans. Well, Gina Raimondo is a planner. Gina Raimondo thinks she's your nanny. Gina Raimondo thinks your health and well-being is her responsibility. It is not. It's our responsibility, folks, yours and mine. We make decisions about our future. Government should inform us. Government should fund the research for therapies or vaccines, obviously for treatments, hospitals, advise us. It's our decision. Our wealth and prosperity is a contingent on our decisions. Gina Raimondo, stop being our nanny, tell us the truth, and leave us the hell alone. Governor Baker's just as bad in Massachusetts. He just announced, I think today, and he's moving all cities and towns. And he's going back to phase 3, step 1. Indoor performance venues. I guess that means gyms and soccer and all that. And a lot of other indoor recreational. Don't know necessarily what that is. Certainly gaming halls or anything have to close. This is Massachusetts. And the state is reducing capacity limits everywhere else. Retail, restaurants, churches to 40%. At least they're treating churches the same this time as everybody else. Is there any doubt that Governor Raimondo is going to try to take us backwards? Try to do more planning. Governor Raimondo is a planner. She thinks it's her job to plan our lives. It is not, folks. There's no governor's job. It is no government's job, not in this country anyway. And I want to contrast that mentality. I guess you could say me, Gina Raimondo, maybe you, baby boomers, right? Compare that with our parents' generation, the greatest generation. A generation who fought wars, went overseas, sacrificed their lives, their limbs, their mental well-being to preserve freedom, not only for ourselves, but for others in other parts of the world. The most unselfish generation. But contrast that with this generation of lawmakers here in Rhode Island. Governor Baker is my former teammate, played basketball together at Harvard. Hate to say it. But like Governor Baker, like Governor Raimondo, like the Biden administration will be. I would say they are the most selfish generation. Because they are afraid, because they don't mind living in fear. They want to impose those restrictions that they would choose for themselves, and they're fine. They're fine. Like we said, restrict yourself if you want. Shelter at home yourself if you want, if you so choose. Well, leave us, the rest of us, alone if we choose not to. Because they are afraid They want the rest of us to suffer. And I'll say even more cynically, so that they can obtain and solidify their power, just like these power-hungry governors are doing in these blue states. They impose lockdown orders. They tell us to cancel our holidays. The Los Angeles mayor says time to cancel everything. They tell us to stay home. They tell us to do everything like this online. Don't meet people anymore. All the things we used to do together in person. We're social human beings, no more. Figure out a way to do it electronically. Our social life, our entertainment. Justice, if they had any sense of justice and any sense of freedom, they would do those things for themselves and let the rest of us do what we want to do. Leave us the hell alone. Let us live our lives in peace. Let us live our lives freely. Every new round of coronavirus cases, they love it. They love it up there. Every time they see those numbers tick up, because they know they can justify staying in power longer and imposing their fears, imposing their restrictions on the rest of us. They want to limit our ability to socialize, to work, probably most importantly, to educate our children. Just think what has happened to this society, to this state in the last 7, 8, 9 months. Just think. And as we found out, for a situation that's not even as bad for most of us as just the 2018 flu. Unbelievable. Nationally, the same thing. And what really, I mean, look at the Midwestern states. They don't have mask mandates out there. I don't know about social distancing and all that. I don't think they have rules or limitations. I know Florida doesn't. Those states that have no requirements for wearing a mask aren't going crazy about testing and lockdowns and face masks like Raimondo have. They have lower case incidents than we do here in Rhode Island. These Orwellian measures just do not work. They don't work. We've proven it here in Rhode Island. Yet for some reason, we're just going to sit back and allow this governor, I predict next Monday or maybe even Thursday, to do more of it. When the planners' plans fail, the planners plan more plans. I don't think that's exactly as Reagan said it, but I like the way that sounds. That's the leftist mentality. If taxing you enough doesn't work, we're going to tax you even more. If restricting your energy uses in the name of global warming doesn't generate all the results we expected, we're going to restrict your choices and tax you on energy even more. If testing, lockdowns, and face masks don't work, then we're going to do more of testing, lockdowns, and face masks. Does that make any sense to you? It's about a balance, folks. This is where anybody who says we're going to listen only to the medical professionals has it wrong. Has to be a balance between economic and social. I look at that S for both economic and S for social. There are economic and social concerns, and of course there are medical concerns. And we got to find a balance. They can't be all one or all the other. And they tell us, the lawmakers tell us, and we'll be with you in just a few minutes, so if you could hold on, thank you. By the way, you're sideways, so if you could turn your phone the other way, you're sorry. But we'll get you in just a few minutes after I finish my ranting here. They tell us that they want to, that the General Assembly and the governor want to continue this state of emergency, keep infringing on our rights because it opens them up to federal money. There was a great article in the Ocean State Current by Monique Chartier. And I want to just to show you the headline, just go to oceanstatecurrent.com. And here's the story. The three leaders, the former speaker, the current speaker, or the speaker to be, and the Senate president and the governor are continuing these lockdowns and state of emergency for what she calls filthy federal lucre. Lucre is money you've sort of obtained it in unethical ways. But yet we saw in the news just today, in fact, here's the article. So go to oceanstatecurrent.com. Great article by Monique Chartier. But yeah, we saw in the news today, and we know that Rhode Island tax receipts are down. They're down at the state level, they're down at the local level. You look at the local 1% hotel meal and beverage tax, localities. So don't they understand that if they unlock things and the economy started growing, that some of that money they would lose federally, if not all of it, they'd get back and increase taxes through an economic activity? Again, it's that balance. Don't they understand? No, they're just money whores. I want the federal money. This is no way to run a state. We should not be dependent on federal money. We should not be beholden to federal money. Was it Timothy 6:10? What is it? 6:10, and you probably might know this, but the love of money is the root of all evil, not money itself, the love of money. And these lawmakers cherish their budget and the money that goes into it above anything else, above any concern they may have for you or me or the small business owners or anybody else in this state. The love of that money in their budget is their number one priority. And I know that because I've worked with them closely up there in Smith Hill for years. No more, because they're unethical, immoral people up there. Their priorities are off. That's all they care about is the money for their budget. That love of money is why our state is in such shambles, medically and economically. So Timothy 6:10. Let's see, 6:11 goes on to say, but you, O man of God, flee from these things and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, perseverance, and gentleness. Nice words. Nice words from Timothy. 6:10. But remember, it's the love of money, not money itself. The left ones always tell us that capitalists and money are evil. No, they're not. But when we base our entire lives on it and we hurt other people because of it, yes, then we are. Okay, let us bring in our guest and we'll close our show with, and I don't think we've ever formally met, but Ann Armstrong, welcome in the Dugout.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Same here. Now, I know I'm going to hit you with this. This is going to be weird, but I have to ask that it's our ritual. We're in the baseball dugout, so you're asked to wear a baseball cap. You have one handy you want to wear?
1 minute. Tommy.
All right.
My son has a Make America Great Again hat.
All right, whatever you want. It's a free country. You can wear whatever you want. You don't have to wear.
That hat I could borrow. Do you have a baseball to borrow?
We should have cleared this. That's all right, Ann. That's okay. Sit down.
You didn't tell me. I'm sorry.
Next time you'll be ready, right? Next time. All right. So you are former gubernatorial candidate. Did you have a party label?
Compassion Party.
The Compassion Party. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. You are a minister as well?
I am. I'm the head of the oldest Christian church in the world. It's the Hebrew Catholic. And we're looked at as the trunk from which all the other branches of apostolic succession derive their authenticity. So, I'm the vine and they're the branches, whatever.
Okay. That's pretty groovy. That's pretty groovy.
I don't want to, we're the bridge between the Jews and the Catholics.
Okay, interesting. And I say groovy because now a lot of people, and again, we talk honestly on this show, but with no malice, we don't have malice. I think the media would kind of consider you as a kind of out there candidate, right? If you're kind of pro-religion, pro-pot, kind of candidate and kind of church. Is that correct?
Well, I know the media likes to cast anybody as crazy who disrupts the narrative.
Yeah,
but
well, that's for sure.
Every single Catholic church of valid apostolic succession uses cannabis balsam, or what you call hash, in the sacraments. It's the active ingredient in the sacrament of anointing of the sick is medical cannabis. Okay. That's why it works. Now, I don't, there's just a little.
All right, I don't want to get too much into your religion, but would you consider yourself kind of more traditional church or more spiritualist?
We're traditional mainstream. We have as I said, we have the oldest liturgy in the world for the Mass.
Okay, what's most important about why we're having you on is because in this state especially, which was born on the concept of complete religious freedom, no matter what, no matter how traditional, no matter how out there anybody might think it is, this state was conceived in religious liberty. And you filed a court filing today claiming that your group's religious rights were being infringed upon by the state. Tell us quickly about that.
Well, quickly, as you probably know, Saturday is the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, the mother and patroness of the Americas. And so we have always gone in the State House on that day and prayed a rosary. In fact, Governor Kachiri's wife used to organize that back in the day. And we have those horns, we blow the horns, and it rings the piezoelectric structure of the State House dome. And we believe that dome, like the domes in cathedrals and in many of the churches, they're sonic amplifiers. They're prayer amplifiers.
Well, they certainly echo. They're not good for PA systems. I like to see those horns someday. Now, but you've been doing this for years, right? How many years your church been doing this?
Oh, I've been doing it since the 90s, and I know that it was done before then.
All right, so what's the big but? But what's happening this year?
We asked if 3 people that all live in the same household could go in the rotunda and say a rosary, and they said, no, the State House closed. Now, they said they're letting the press in, and now ever since we asked, they're not letting the press in. But the case in the Brooklyn diocese and the case in California just said that if they're allowing similarly situated other places to let people in, they can't tell churches they can't have a religious exercise. So for example, the mall, the food court is open. So how come they could be open and 3 people can't say a rosary in the State House? What's the relative risk? And what's really funny is when we
did you actually ask for a permit or just ask to go? Did you have to get a permit in years past?
We never had to get a written permit. Somebody named Deb White, who's the head of assets management.
Yeah.
I've
called her before to reserve space there for various rallies. Yeah.
Call her and she says yes. Now, so what's interesting is that here she said no, and we said, well, we're going to file a lawsuit. So we call the Attorney General's office. We say, how do we serve the papers? Can we serve the papers electronically so that we don't have to come in face to face? And they said, no, we won't accept service unless it's by federal rules of civil procedure. So my process server had to go in a little office, and we can't wear masks. It's against our religion. We believe that the mask is the mark of the beast.
In the buying and selling. Religious freedom. Go ahead. Yeah.
That's right. And so he went in the Attorney General's office without a mask. He had 7 distinct interactions with workers there. He documented it for the judge, because how can that be safe and 3 people standing far away from each other is not safe.
All right, but I want to get to the filing. What was the filing today you made?
To let us in the State House to pray the rosary on Friday at 4
All
o'clock.
right, and who did you file with?
We filed with federal court. and
Federal court.
Chief Justice, I think McConnell is his name, is
Yeah.
going to hear it on Thursday. We have a hearing. And I definitely think it's a winner. We've been practicing religious rights lawsuits for a couple of years. As you know, for a while, the state didn't believe us.
Yeah.
That all valid churches of apostolic succession use cannabis. They kept arresting us twice, but we won those cases, and now we're winning this case. We're going
All
to win
right,
this.
well, all right, so here's, so one more question and then one more request of you. So do you feel you're filing this lawsuit pretty much just for your own church's rights, or do you think it has broader implications for religious rights across the state?
Rights for me or rights for you, okay?
True.
We operate on our side of the wall of separation. The government operates on their side of the wall of separation. I decide what's essential for my church. Gina decides what's essential for her state. Now, our church out in West Greenwich, we never shut down. We never limited congregation size. I will never turn away someone. The church is a hospital for sinners, and we minister spiritually the way a hospital like
Okay.
Rhode Island Hospital ministers physically. You don't shut down a hospital.
All
in
right,
the middle-
I want to keep this more as a legal discussion than a religious one right now. I hope you understand.
All right.
But, so here's my invitation. So once you have your hearing and a decision is made, I don't know if they'll make it right away or wait a few days, but will you come back on and will you update us as to what happened and transpired in the hearing and with the decision?
I absolutely will. Thank you very much for letting me tell the story. And Gina
And
said,
next time you'll wear a hat of your choice, whatever hat you want. Ann Armstrong with the, what's the name of your church?
the Healing Church in Rhode Island.
The
And I
Healing
just
Church in Rhode
shout
Island.
out to Sydney Powell. My mom bought me a jacket.
No,
just
no, no, we're not gonna go there. All right, we were interested in the legal aspect. Ann Armstrong, we'll talk to you next time. Thank you very much. Wow, okay, interesting lady. And yeah, she's outspoken. And listen, you can think what you want of her church and you can think what you want of her and her followers, but they have a very valid, sounds to me, legal complaint. Now, whether they prevail or not, I don't know, but they have a very valid legal complaint because, like she said, what her rights are all of our rights. And if she's granted those rights, well, she's already been granted those rights. Whether those rights are honored or not, we'll find out. And it might have implications for the rest of us who are religious minded. So we'll have Ann back on. All right, I'm going to conclude the show with just one announcement and a couple of thoughts. Tomorrow, we're going to have a really big show. We're going to be doing something a little bit unique. We're going to be having a forum on why the government is holding certain testing data from us. We're going to have a forum that's not only going to be open to you, but we're also going to have it open to any media that might be interested. Now, listen, I expect no media to cover this. They ignore us. They ignore anything that goes against the narrative and ignore anything that goes against their masters in the political classes, the corporate media. But we are going to have a forum tomorrow afternoon, same time, same bat channel, 4 o'clock, right here on rafreedom.org/live. And I want you to participate. Tell your friends. We're going to have Dr. Andrew Bostom on. We're going to have Patricia Morgan on. We're going to talk about their request, their what appear to be futile efforts to get public information from this government. They're hiding data from you that could have severe impact in a good way on public policy, but yet they won't put that information out. We're going to talk all about that and why. So it's kind of a forum/media availability session tomorrow, 4 o'clock. So please tune in. I want to read one passage to you from a woman who I admire. She is a writer. I don't know her politics. She appears to be very conservative. I've seen her on cable news a few times. Heather McDonald. I think she's a psychologist or a sociologist or something like that. And she wrote a long, well, there were excerpts of a long speech she gave. And I read through the speech, and I'm going to read you the first paragraph, and then I'm going to read you her conclusion, because her conclusion, I mean, there were probably 20 pages of material in the middle. So this might take about 2 minutes, but this is how we'll end our show. So this is from Heather McDonald, and I quote, "For the last 4 months, Americans have lived through what is arguably the most consequential period of government malfeasance in U.S. history. Public officials' overreaction to the novel coronavirus put American cities into a coma. Those same officials' passivity in the face of widespread rioting threatens to deliver the coup de grace. Together, these back-to-back governmental failures will transform the American politic and cripple urban life for decades. The coronavirus lockdowns demonstrated our leaders' ignorance of economic interdependence." That's what we talked about earlier, that balance between medical and social and economic. Back to her. "The coronavirus lockdowns demonstrated our leaders' ignorance of economic interdependence. After the riots, that ignorance has been shown to run far deeper. It is an arrogance about government's most fundamental obligation to safeguard life, liberty, and property. It is an ignorance about human nature and human striving." Again, my comments exactly as we talked about a little bit earlier in this show. There's more to consider than just COVID cases. Back to Ann Armstrong. "Property and capital are not soulless abstractions easily replaced by an insurance payout, as the rioters and their apologists maintain. Capital is accumulated effort. Capital is accumulated effort and innovation, the sum of human achievement and imagination. Its creation is the aim of civilization." She's right. This is why we live. This is why we get civilized, to innovate, to prosper. Back to her. "Civilization is everywhere and at all times vulnerable to the darkest human impulses. Government exists to rein in those impulses so that individual initiative can flourish. America's founders, schooled in a profound philosophical and literary tradition dating back to classical antiquity, understood the fragility of civil peace and the danger of the lustful, vengeful mob. Our present leaders, the products of a politicized and failing education system, seem to know nothing of those truths. Pulling the country back from the abyss will require a recalling of our civilizational inheritance." Wow. Those are some powerful words by Heather McDonald. And she's right. It's only a return and an appreciation of those core, fundamental American and constitutional values. The government is not the nanny state. It is not their job to ensure, to manage every aspect of our life and to keep a risk-free life for all of us. It is our responsibility to act freely for ourselves. It is not the government's role. That's how our country was designed, but unfortunately, that's not where our country is going. More powerful and more appropriate words, I don't know if I've ever read. And I will read them again on another show by Heather McDonald. Because this is a lesson. This is exactly what's going on in Massachusetts today, what will probably be going on even more so in Rhode Island. We've showed you the stats. We've showed you 2018 analogy. We showed you what's happening at the ACI. The media and the government refuse to acknowledge it. They just want to create fear and infringe on our rights. As Heather McDonald said, we must pull the country back from this abyss. And the only way to do that is to recall and reappreciate our American constitutional inheritance. Big show tomorrow. Join us for our forum/media availability session. Big discussion about data being withheld by the state government that could positively affect our lives.